Hello everybody! Welcome, welcome! It is Friday. Happy Friday, everyone! We are here for an episode of Pink Sheep and Friends. This is episode, I think it's episode 61. We're moving on up there, so that's super exciting. And just a reminder, if you want to check out any of the past episodes, you can find them on my YouTube channel. It's a lot easier to find them there. When I post this to my Instagram, I'll have the information about that, but you just go to youtube.com/pinksheepdesign and you can go to the playlists and you can find the Pink Sheep and Friends playlist. So before we get started, I wanted to share with you guys, if you haven't seen my post already, my final summer pattern has been released, and that is the lovely Renegade crop. So this is what I am wearing today. So you've got your elastic on the bottom. There are instructions in the pattern on how to add some actual elastic thread down here so that it keeps that nice elasticity. And I've already made 3. So there's number 2. This was actually the very first one that I made, just using 2 strands of Lily Sugar and Cream. This is made using an old discontinued yarn called Lion Brand Softball. And then this one was made using a mix of Hobie and hooked ribbon yarn. So this is my ribbon yarn one, but super fun. I've already got a 4th one in the works, just because it's great. And you can wear it over, so if you're not a high-waisted, you know, if you don't want to show any skin, if you don't wear high-waisted shorts, you can throw it on over a romper or a dress. So it's a great extra layer, and it just adds a little pizzazz, you know, and depending on the yarn you use, you can dress it up, dress it down. So I'm really excited about this one. It turned out really great. My testers did an amazing job, and I will be sharing tester photos today. So be on the lookout for those. There's already quite a few in my stories, but I will have some posts going up today as well. So that's exciting. But today I am so excited to bring on Camryn of Camryn's Cute Creations. She is killing it on Instagram, and she is offering all of the most amazing advice that you would need to be successful at craft shows. So I'm super excited to talk to her about her journey with her business and how she is helping other businesses and how she might be able to help you guys if you are interested in trying to make that jump into craft shows, or maybe you are trying to be a little bit more successful at craft shows in general, because they can definitely be overwhelming, and I haven't done them in quite some time, but did them pretty regularly for a while. So I think we have plenty to talk about, so let's go ahead and bring her on, because she has already requested to join. Technology. Hello, Kim. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Make sure I can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, I had to turn up my volume. Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Thank you for having me, Evelyn.
Of course. And I'm having to move my camera, of course, because Instagram's like, oh, I'm going to lift you up like 3 feet.
Right? Okay, I think I'm good. I'm in frame. There we go.
Yes. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I almost wore pigtails, so we almost matched. And then I was like, then I just like twisted it all up here.
I know. I was about to do a messy bun, so we almost twinned here.
I'll tell you, I finally started Googling like different ways to make messy buns, because I was like, you know, I have one way, and it's just, you know, it's hit or miss. And if my hair is not acting right,
I didn't want to risk it, you know. So this
is a new technique. I don't know if I love it, but at least
I like
it's hanging in there.
It's cute with the headband and all the pink going on. I'm loving it.
Yeah, that has become the new obsession, or the headband. So that's I don't know if you've heard of Hey Nikoko before, but he does all the different styles and colors and little ties and twists, and she hand makes all of them. Yeah.
She hand makes us?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Because I wasn't sure. I was kind of questioning. I was like, I don't know if she's ordering these and like reselling them, because I know there's people that do that. And I finally asked her, because she doesn't have it like advertised that they're handmade. And I was like, you didn't advertise that.
Yeah,
like, make sure people know. That's a big deal.
Right. I want some now.
Yeah, I'll send you the link so you can check them out, because it's like she's doing spooky season right now. I don't know if you're on the spooky season train already.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
And let's see, Hattie Made Crochet says, so glad you're having Camryn on today. She's got such good tips. Love you both.
Aw.
Let's see, and I'm probably not going to see. Okay, so a reminder to everyone watching today, please, if you have specific questions, put them in the question box. It's like all the way down on the bottom of your screen to the right side. There's a little, comment box with question in it. That way, if you have a specific question, it's not going to get lost, because even right now, I know I'm missing comments because it's showing me everyone who's joining. And so I promise I'm not ignoring you guys. I just probably won't see it because it moves too fast. So definitely pop questions there if you have them. But I would love it, Camryn, if for anyone who's watching and maybe doesn't know who you are, so they maybe have not come across you on Instagram yet, just a little quick intro of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, totally. So I started my handmade business back in 2019. I was a broke college student. I was thinking, oh, I'll make a little side money, right? And then it just evolved. So I graduated in 2021. I just took the leap of faith, pursued it full time, and really the only reason I was able to was selling at craft shows. It was just the number one thing that was generating income for me in my business. So I kind of just went full force and just did a ton of craft shows. And then now I am on YouTube and on Instagram. I'm sharing tips and tricks, helping other makers sell at craft shows, just because it works so well for me. And, I feel like there wasn't a ton of resources when I first started. So I just wanted to be a resource for other makers if they want to pursue that as well.
Well, and especially finding the niche, because I think that's so important when you're trying to do something full time. You can have multiple areas, so obviously you don't just give advice, you're still doing craft shows, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So I think it's super interesting, and I think one of the reasons I've loved Pink Sheep and Friends is finding people who are doing super interesting things within the same community. So finding these really different niches. So when did you learn to crochet? When did that start?
Ooh, yeah, so I learned when I was about 10, and a lot of people think my mom taught me, but it was actually a friend of mine's mom, and I would go hang out with my friend, and I saw her mom crocheting, and I think she saw I was interested, so she's like, let me just teach you. Her own kids didn't really want to learn, so I was like, okay, and she taught me, and I remember just loving it instantly. Of course, kind of did it off and on over years. I used to be kind of embarrassed about it when I was a kid. Like, I don't know, it's kind of, it's not the hip thing to do. And then I just realized I loved it so much that I just wanted to do it more and then sell it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you pick crochet back up? Did you do it during college as like a stress reliever, or like how did that, because you said you kind of weren't feeling it when you were younger, but what did that transition look like back into picking it back up and then going all the way into selling at craft shows?
So I I picked up a part-time job at Michael's when I was in college, and I got this killer discount on yarn, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I should totally start making some blankets and things like that. And I love giving gifts with it. I've just always been a handmade gift giver.
Yes.
And so that's kind of when I started incorporating that back into my life, and it was a huge stress relief for me as a college student. And yeah, I just did it all the time. I'm making so many items. I was just thinking, I gotta start selling this,
So do you still sell on Etsy? I know you've talked about this a little bit in posts and things like that. What is your opinion there? Is it still something you're into, or?
I stopped selling on Etsy. I started selling online on my own website for a while, and now just with doing the content creation stuff and craft shows, I'm not doing the online handmade finished items anymore. So I sell patterns and things on my website, but as far as the things I'm selling at, like completed handmade crochet products, I sell just at markets right now.
Okay. So, have you done any wholesale with your items, or right now it's just markets?
It's a little bit, but mostly just the markets. I feel like I signed up for so many of them, and I can't keep up on the inventory already that the wholesale kind of overwhelms me sometimes. Yes. But I do a little bit of consignment around a couple shops in the area as well. It's just easier to keep up with for me. Yeah. Yes.
I remember, I feel like I was where you were. It was probably, oh gosh, now 3 or 4 years ago. And that was all I did was craft shows and consignment. And luckily, and where are you located?
I'm in Spokane, Washington.
Okay. So do you feel like it's a good area for artists? Like, do you feel like there's a lot of opportunity there with shows and the availability of shows, or do you have to travel a lot?
It's definitely it's a good place for it. There's a lot of stuff opening around here, and then also just like in the surrounding areas too. But I haven't had to travel super far.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that we were in Atlanta when I was doing that full time, and it was tough, but it was fun.
Yeah.
I think I would take days. You'd have to shoot the gap, which you could do if you're working from home and you're running your own business. So I would leave my house around 10, once everybody had gotten off the roads, and I would drive to all the different shops. I would check my inventory. I would re-up the inventory. I think I had at that time 4 or 5 shops, but it's like you said, it was a small few items that were at these shops. It didn't feel super overwhelming. And you usually make more with consignment. Usually you can make, with wholesale, it's usually 50%, but you can usually keep a little more money if you're doing it consignment. And then on the weekends, it was showtime.
Yep, definitely. So are you still doing craft shows?
Not right now.
Yeah.
So that ended, it wasn't, because it was successful. Yeah. There were quite a few shows that I miss. Like there are shows now in Atlanta that I'm like, man, that was just fun.
Yeah.
Like not only did I make enough money, but you find your favorite shows and you look forward to those shows. You just
want to do the same ones over and over, definitely.
Yes. And so I ended up getting a job with a company in Atlanta that I was really excited about. And that's the beauty of when you run your own business, I think a lot of us still keep an eye out for job opportunities because you're like, well, now I get to pick and choose. Like if I see something that looks interesting, I can go after it. And so that's what happened. I ended up taking a full-time job with a company called Professional Photographers of America, which is in Atlanta. And I was running their social media, which that was kind of, I wanted to get into social media management and marketing and learn more about that. Yeah. So I stayed there for about 2 years and then just never got back into shows. I will never say never,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of one of those things where as entrepreneurs, we set up all these passive streams of income or all these streams of income, and then we only have so much time. So sometimes it is just, for me, the selling online finished products is just kind of taking a break right now. Maybe I'll pick it back up, but right now just not worth managing that in my schedule. But I love that you've done craft shows before. How many years did you do them for?
I think it was 2 or 3 years that it was and it was not in the summer. So I did not do summer shows. I
don't like doing the summer either.
Yeah. And I tried 1 year. I made a bunch of crop tops and it wasn't awful, but it just was not it didn't feel like it was worth the effort. And again, in Atlanta, it may be similar where you are, but I had to go into the city. So like I had to deal with finding parking. I had to deal with the drive and the commute from where we were outside of the city. So it's a lot. Like you have to really, and I'm sure you talk about this, when you're giving advice for craft shows, is making sure that all the other odds and ends that you may not be thinking about is like, where are you going to buy food? Are you going to bring food with you? Are you going to have to pay for parking? Are you going to have to, do you have everything? Some of these shows are super specific. Like there were shows I couldn't go to because I didn't have one of those white fireproof tents.
Seriously. It's so true. There's so much that goes into them. There's so much prep, but also just like the day, it's just so overwhelming. So I did some summer shows. I did good at them, but if I'm only gonna have so much inventory I can physically make and sell, then I'd rather do the big shows and do less of them, if that makes sense. So I'm not setting up so many times week after week. I can just be a little more strategic, but at the beginning, sometimes it's just trying out a bunch and seeing which ones you are a good fit at too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I paused my feed because someone said, or Rachel Barr said, what is your friend's mom's reaction now? So if you keep in touch with her, does she know how successful that has allowed you to become? Do you still have a relationship with her?
I do. So we reconnected actually a few years ago, and she's a small business owner too. So she's actually been super inspiring and helped me out a ton. Like, listen to this podcast, do this, and helps me out even with my small business. And I definitely think she loves that I'm still doing it. Super cool. So we do keep in touch.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was trying to scroll through and see if I had missed anything else. I don't think I did. And definitely, guys, if you're here and you have specific shows, especially craft show questions, let us know. Pop them in the question box. Like I said, the little comment box that's down on the right side. And we can answer those as well. I have to know if, so when you do shows, and this was what I was getting at, when I was doing shows regularly, it was like every single weekend from October through Christmas.
Oh, totally.
I mean, that was really, and you'd pack them in.
Totally.
So is that kind of your schedule now, or?
That's definitely, it's similar. I do a little bit more. I start a little bit earlier, so more September, and I try to end a little earlier because I want to prep for the holidays too. And I think when I schedule them right before Christmas, it would just stress me out. And I kind of realized at the end of that season, I had low inventory anyway, so it wasn't worth doing a couple extra shows because I also like to hand make all my gifts. So I wanted to, you know, kind of focus more on that. So definitely really similar though. I pack them all in, and then the rest of the year is prepping a ton. So
exactly. So when you prep, I think this is a big question for a lot of people too. So as you're prepping, I know for me, I just had a bunch of like Tupperware bins that I would fill up. What does that look like for you? Because it's like by the time market season rolls around, you have a lot of stuff. So what does that look like for you, storage and keeping it all organized so that you know what you've got? Do you have lists of what you want to make? Like, what does that look like for you?
So I definitely make some sort of plan leading up to it, of kind of a strategy of what items I want to make for sure. And then some that if I have extra time, I definitely want to incorporate. But as far as storing all of my stuff, I feel like a lot of people assume I'm really aesthetically, you know, pleasing with all the stories. It's not. I seriously just throw them in bins, and then before the shows, I make sure and organize everything. So when I get to the show, it's organized. But yeah, my works in progress are just in bins, and then the finished things are in bins, and that's just the best way to store them. Just because I'm not selling online right now, it doesn't really need to be organized during those months that I'm prepping. Yeah, so I just throw them in bins. I have these huge bins that my husband had before we were even dating. I don't know where he got them. They're huge. And I've been storing all of my stuff in those. And it's like my goal to fill 2 of them. And
So we did have a question. Do you work craft shows solo or with someone for crowd control or in case you have to go to the bathroom?
Definitely. So for me, I do most of them solo. If I can convince my husband to come visit me for lunch or something, sometimes he'll bring a chair and hang out with me so I can just run and go to the bathroom. But a ton of them he works too, so I will do it solo. And it's really important to introduce yourself to your vendor neighbor because they can just watch your space for you really quick. When you run to the bathroom, you want to make sure nobody's stealing anything, or also if a potential customer walks up and they're interested in buying something, you want to make sure that your neighbor can just say, "Oh, she'll be right back," or let them know. Have you had a similar experience with that? Or,
I have found that usually, I mean, I'd have to say like 99.9% of cases that the maker community is supportive. They want to help each other. A lot of people are doing shows alone. I mean, that was the majority of the makers at the shows in Atlanta were alone. Like it was rare that they had someone that was there with them the whole time.
Definitely.
And so you all help each other. And you want to introduce yourself ahead of time, get to the show early if you can so that you can talk to the people around you, make friends. I know if you get into shows and you stay in the circuit, so it's like you're in a circuit, like you're going to see the same people a lot. You'll find buddies, and a lot of times you can request to be next to them.
Definitely.
So if you talk to the person who's running the show, sometimes it's part of the application. It'll say like, is there someone you want to be next to? And you can, connect with these makers, follow them on Instagram, like create that local. And that was something that I did really love about being in the Atlanta circuit is, I made all these friends that were local and, had the creative mindset. You start to look into bartering. I had a lot of times Christmas time comes around and their family's tired of getting jewelry and my family's tired of getting crochet. So you get to do trades and that benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it is definitely a community thing. And I think a lot of people who haven't tried a craft show before don't get that really your area does have some sort of community. And when you even show up to shows, you'll start recognizing the same vendors over and over. Oh, they set up at multiple shows. And then when you start setting up at them, you'll see, oh yeah, I remember you from this show, or I remember you from that show. So it's definitely, requesting to be next to people is if you're going to be solo and it's a long weekend, can definitely be helpful.
Yep. And I know too, it's a great way to find shows. So I know when I was first getting into the circuit in Atlanta, I would go to these other makers pages, and a lot of makers post like, here's where I'm going to be over the next couple months. And you can Google all of those and say, okay, this needs to be on my show next year. You can reach out, say, have you done this show before? Was it a good show for you? Would you do it again? You know, you can really start to cherry pick where you're going to go based on real feedback.
And it doesn't even have to be just crocheters either. It could be like candle makers. Or I have some friends that do candles, and they'll, next time I see them at a show, they're always like, oh, you should check out this one and this one. Your stuff would sell well here, and just give you all the ideas. I
don't know if I had another crocheter that I was friends with in Atlanta. I think I discovered one that had just gotten started doing shows right as I was leaving.
Okay.
So, you know, everyone that I connected with, it was across the board. I had people who made jewelry. I had someone who did like the embroidered pillows and tea towels that I was really close with, who I actually taught to crochet. And I was going to ask you, have you ever taught someone to crochet at a show?
Ooh, at a show?
Yes.
Oh, I've never done it right at a show like that before, but that sounds fun.
Yep. There was a little, and it's probably the market that I missed the most, because it was not a big market. It was good enough to make me money. You know, it was still lucrative to go, but the ambiance. So it was my last show before Christmas. So it was part of a tour of homes in Atlanta. So they have all these little neighborhoods. So it was like a historic tour of homes that they had a maker's market at the tour of homes. So at the end of the tour, they could come in and shop.
Cool.
And it was pretty exclusive. So a lot of the people, once you get in, you're in like forever. And then, you know, they can maybe bring people in as they have space. And I got into the show one year, and it was like the kids choir is practicing while you're setting up. I mean, it's just like everything Christmas that you love. It's like goosebumps.
Aww.
You know, like it's time for Christmas and it's cold outside, even in Atlanta. We had one year that almost got canceled because it actually got, it was sleeting, you know, so it was like, people, I mean, in the South, if it's snowing in the South, you need to stay home. Like, we're not equipped for it. And so, you know, you actually were set up, there were church pews up against the wall in the old, like, historic chapel. And so you were literally sitting like right next to your person, you know, who had the table in front of them. So it was a lot closer. You know, your tables were right next to each other, and you're sitting in these pews next to each other. And and her name is CJ, and she was selling her towels and pillows with like funny Southern sayings, and saw that, you know, I'm always working. I'm sure you are too. You're bringing something you can work with. It's a great conversation starter. She wanted to learn. So it's a 2-day show. So she went to Walmart after the show and bought exactly what I told her to buy: the big blue plastic hook and some blanket yarn. And we sat down the next day, and I taught her the basics. She got me to actually she videoed me showing her so she could take it home. And moving forward, like the next year, she'd be crocheting blankets. Now, she never sold it, but she made them for gifts. And it was just so cool.
That's so sweet. I love that. I was about to say, you'd have to sit there with them for a while to teach you. So it was another vendor you're teaching. That's so cool. I love that.
Exactly. I would love to know, do you have any fun stories from past shows that you'd like to share? I mean, I know you've shared some on your feed, but maybe some memorable moments.
I feel like I have so many that it's like, when someone asks me that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like all over the place. But I feel like the one that comes to mind that I really love, just a specific story, is I usually sell items that are kind of produced a lot. So my velvet beanies, I make a lot of them, and I make them in the same colors. And so rarely I do something that's kind of more one of a kind, just because that's the way I've set up my business and my inventory.
And if it's working, if they're selling.
So I made a couple of these, or I actually made just one of a strawberry bucket hat. It was super cute. It was kind of not really my style, but it was just something I wanted to do. I actually just made it to take some pictures at a strawberry patch, and then I had it, and I wasn't going to wear it again. So I was like, whatever. I'm running out of inventory. Like, let's just see if it sells, you know? And I had it for a couple markets. So I set up at this pumpkin patch every year, and I set up every weekend in fall, and it was up there for a couple weekends. And I'm not kidding you, so many people, almost everybody who walked up to my booth loved it, or some people tried it on, but I don't know if I'm going to wear it. It was just kind of that product that it was bringing people in, but nobody was buying it. And
Yeah.
it was so cute because this older woman walked up and she was so quiet, and it was on a mannequin, and she like pointed at it, and I got it down for her. She puts it on, and she just immediately, she was like, it was made for her. It was so cute. And she immediately was like, just take my money. Like, I want this right away.
I don't care how much it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Just tell me. Yeah.
I think I had it priced so low too, which I was surprised that nobody was buying it. I think it was just one of those things, oh, when am I going to wear this, you know, or whatever. And then she bought it, and I always remember her. Just, it was so sweet. She put it on immediately and walked off. And I just love that. When it's somebody, I'm just glad nobody else got it, you know, because it was almost like it was made for her. Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm.
I think some of the most validating moments that you can have at craft shows are when people are like, I can't imagine leaving without this. Totally. And especially now, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I remember I got to a point with the shows. I had just gotten into consignment, and I had raised my prices because I was like, I'm not going to make any money in consignment, and I can't undercut the stores at the show. And so, you know, I have to up my prices, and I was super nervous. I was like, I don't know if people are going to buy my stuff at these new prices. And one of the specific ones was I made these big triangle wrap shawl type pieces with big chunky yarn, and I usually only made a couple because they're expensive. I think they were $100+ at this point. And I had them wrapped over the mannequin. I usually made maybe 4 or 5 in different colors, like a gold and a charcoal, like they're real like neutral, but the popular pops of color, I guess, with like the deep reds. And I had a lady who came up, and it was kind of that same thing. She came up and she was like, I have to have that. I don't care how much it is. Like, you know, just tell me. I can't leave without it. And then came back at the end of the show and bought another one.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet. I love that.
But it's that validation, you know, like I was nervous because I was like, I don't know if people are going to think that my work is worth this amount of money, especially this was probably the second time that I had upped my prices to try to make sure that, and some of it too is you don't want to sell out. You don't want to you don't want an empty booth at the end of the day, because what are you going to do next weekend?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Totally. I love that. That's so sweet.
So what has your experience been when it comes to pricing, and have you gotten to a point, how many times have you upped your pricing if you have, and what have the reasons been, you know, trying to decide when to make that decision?
I feel like I've had quite the journey with pricing. When I first started, it was just literally, I wasn't timing myself. I wasn't thinking of material costs. I was just pricing whatever. I just wanted to sell it. I just wanted to get started. And after a while, it was when I learned that, oh, I could actually make money doing this. I could actually pursue this full time. That I realized I needed to have a little bit more of a strategy, especially when I graduated and I decided to do this full time. I knew I needed to have a better strategy. So I do have a full strategy that I use where I include all my material costs, and then I also time myself so I make sure I'm making enough for my time. And then on top of that, making an additional profit to cover other expenses and also just profit in my business in general. So I have a whole strategy I like to use, and that's definitely what's been keeping me going. And as far as like revenue with the craft shows, is now it's set up where it's covering all of those expenses, like those fees and my materials, and I can just confidently show up and know that I'm actually making money. It's such a good feeling knowing that, oh, I'm making this much when this item sells, you know? So yeah,
I think you know, a lot of people want this, like, you know, step-by-step guide of like, this is exactly how it's done, but it's not that easy, because it depends on where you live. It depends on what you're making. It depends on who your audience is. And I think it's okay to not know. It's okay to jump in and undercharge for your items to start out, because you just don't know. It's what you take from those shows and say, you know, for me, I used to make those they were little coffee koozies that were shaped like little cat ears, and they had little cat face. For some reason, they were one of the most popular. They were just a novelty. People thought they were cute. I made them in all the colors. They were like, my friend has an orange cat. She has to have this, you know. And when I started out, I was selling those things for like $10 a piece. If not less. And by the time I left the show circuit, those had jumped to, I think, 20 and 25. It was like 20 for the small ones and 25 for the can koozies. From like $10 and $12, you know, and I just had to, because I kept selling out. So I'm like, if I'm selling out, I can charge a little bit more and then I'm not going to sell out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's definitely that balance there where you don't want to completely sell out. If it's selling too fast, you can definitely raise your prices a little bit. But then, of course, if you raise it too much and they're not selling at all, then you're having a worse problem. But yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of people get nervous getting started with their prices. And honestly, it is an unpopular opinion, but I think you kind of have a similar opinion. Is you can start kind of lower when you're just getting started. That helps build your confidence. Then it's like, yeah, go for it. If it gets you started, yeah, just go for it. And then you can slowly raise it over time. It doesn't have to be, I'm sure it didn't happen one day you were selling at $10, the next day you jumped it to 20. It's like a slow progression.
It was.
Yeah.
10, 12, 15, 20. I mean, like, you know, you find your intervals. You know, and I think it is. I remember back when I was looking at pricing and trying to figure all of that out, I saw someone somewhere, and again, I'm sure this was somewhere on the internet, that someone said you can't raise your prices. Yes, you can. You can raise them as much as you want and as often as you want. It is your business, and you have to do what works for you.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like sometimes it's, I don't know. Yeah, I've heard that before where, oh, you can't raise them. Oh, you can't lower them. That's, you know, but you have to do what you have to do to stay in business. And I think a huge part of doing craft shows, I talked about it a little bit in my video I did on YouTube today, is adapting. And you have to learn what your customers want and adapt from there. And a lot of that is, you know, changing your prices, changing your products, trying new things. And it's definitely a risk, but it's totally worth it when you get in the groove of it.
Yes. So we had a question earlier about, oh goodness, tell me, I just lost all of these. One of them was about your storage. So when you're storing all of your items, is there anything that you put in there with the items to either keep moths out or keep it from smelling, or is there anything you use for that?
I personally don't, but I keep them inside with all of my other stuff in my craft room, so there's no bug issue or anything like that. So that's kind of what I do, but I don't know, what have you done anything to keep it fresh?
I did not either. I mean, and again, I still actually have 2 or 3 Tupperware full of stuff that just never got sold 3 years ago, and I just don't want to frog them yet because I'm like, maybe one day.
Maybe.
Another question, one of my biggest questions is how to build tax into my items. So I will tell you guys, neither of us are CPAs. So I do know that if you are charging sales tax, it has to be separate. You can't build it into the item. They have to actually see that they are paying sales tax. So you don't want to build it in and just be like, oh, it's $10 and that includes taxes. It does have to be a separate fee. But I would definitely, you know, if that's something that you're concerned about, I would find a local CPA. If you can find someone who works with small businesses who can help you with your taxes, they can help you answer all those, and make sure you're doing it right, because you want to be remitting it correctly, you know, to the state, and you know, so yes, local CPAs, local small business associations, they are a huge resource.
Definitely.
So, and I don't know if you, I mean, I hope that I was didn't mean to speak for both of us, but I figured that.
Definitely.
How do you present your products at your stall? Some of my products are tablecloths, and it's difficult to decide how to present them. So I guess like larger items. So if you have larger items, what are some of the ways that you display those?
Ooh, so I feel like I don't have a ton of larger items. I usually have those as my higher ticket items, and I kind of display them a little bit, I don't know, uniquely. So I don't bring a ton of super big items. I don't have like a ton of blankets, but I might have 3 or 4 that I lay around or hang on the canopy. I think bigger items, if you can get them up so people can see them and draw, that usually your bigger items are drawing people in.
I'm sitting here thinking about those ladders. If you can find one of those leaning ladders, the ladder bookshelves where you could fold the tablecloths over so it's like that would be helpful, and it doesn't take up as much space. So I think for some of those larger items that you can't put on a mannequin, that might be helpful.
Definitely.
And let's see, I know we had a few more. I am trying to go through. So Sindra says Camryn's calculator is awesome. So do you have a pricing calculator?
Yes.
Is it on your website?
So it's my entire strategy. I have a YouTube video walking through it if anybody wants to check that out. Yeah.
Okay. And is that something, so you have the YouTube video that walks through it. Do you actually have like a download? What is that?
So it's a paid product on my website. So it's just $14. And it breaks down your online and your craft show prices. So it kind of separates them out. And it's just a fun visual too. It breaks it down. It's got pie charts on there. So
That's
definitely
awesome.
a good resource to use for pricing.
So we've got how do you decide what items to sell? And do both of you have a target market in mind? So you can
Ooh.
go first.
Okay. So as far as target, I feel like start with target market. I definitely have a target market that I've written out. I think it's really important, and I think a lot of people get nervous, like, oh, if I just make things for one person, not a lot of people will buy from me. But really niching down, you're gonna have other people buy from you too. But my target audience is young moms in the area, because I do a lot of the matching mommy and me
Yes.
sets. It's very modern and super cozy. It's kind of P&W, and so that's my target audience. But of course, I have grandmas that buy for their grandkids and still, and all the things. So that's for target audience. And then once you decide, I guess that's why I answered that first. Once you decide your target audience, it's so much easier to decide what products you're going to offer, because you just research your target audience. I always say, if you just say your friend, if your target audience is a dog mom and your friend owns a dog, start asking her questions. What colors would you want to buy for your dog? Would this be helpful? And so if you know somebody, like I have some mom friends, I ask questions and get feedback. Is this something that you would get for your kid? So
Yes.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I think I know for me it was no baby stuff, no kid stuff. So for me, the audience was people my age and older that were looking for more of the statement pieces that they can wear for a long time. And that was, I used the super chunky yarn. I know you do as well for a lot of your items. And it's a standout piece when you've got these huge. I make the biggest pom-poms you can make on the top of the hats. And there were so many people that were like, I'm not a pom-pom person. I'm like, try it on and tell me you're not a pom-pom person. And finding that happy place with the fit. So like the hats that I sold took a couple years to get it right, where I only made that one style of hat because it fit so many different size heads. People said it was so comfortable. So you tailor your product based on that feedback too. Because I know when I first started selling hats, I would create kind of a brim, but I had people who were honestly saying, it kind of gave me a little bit of a headache, looks a little tight around the brim. So fixing, that design and making sure to hone in. And for me, it was, I think I wrote it down somewhere. It's like I had 6 or 7 main products, and that was it.
Yeah,
so I had my weird cat cozies that were all off to the side by themselves, but they were my lowest price point. So I had something on that lower price range. And then I would use the super bulky yarn to make headbands and fingerless gloves, which were also on the lower price range, but they were all the same. It was all the same style because I liked it. It was fast. I could make a lot of them, a lot of colors. Cat ear hats, so the square cat ear hats that sold, that was my acrylic yarn that I would use for those. And then pom-pom hats, the jumbo pom-pom hats, 2 scarf styles, cowl and infinity, that's it. And then the big wraps and maybe a bag or 2, so that sliding scale. So you have smaller items, you can make a bunch of them really fast and a bunch of colors, or stick to neutrals, whatever you want. And then as you slide up to the more expensive items, you don't have to make as many unless unless you want to, or you sell a lot of them.
Definitely. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So when you did markets, I feel like it's different for everybody's area, but were your higher price point options selling more often, or was it your cat cozies and kind of the smaller price point?
It was really a mix.
It was, yeah.
I think that's what was so great. And it for me, it really did work to have that sliding scale. Like I would probably make 100 cat cozies, and then it would go down to maybe, 30 to 50 of the fingerless gloves and the headbands, and then maybe 35 to 40. And this is per show. I mean, I'd have 35 to 40 jumbo hats, in different colors. And then from there, it would go down to maybe 25 of each style of scarf.
Yeah.
And then maybe 5 or 6 max of the big triangle wraps. If I had bags, I think I remember one market I brought 3 or 4 big wool bags that I had made. So, it's, and again, a lot of those pieces, it might take a little while to sell, but then you're going to have that one person who comes up and are like, I can't live without this.
Totally. And I always notice that those bigger pieces draw people in anyways, so I don't even mind if they don't sell as often, because they're drawing people in and they buy the smaller price point options. But I love that you had like different price points.
Yeah.
Did you feel like when you went to prep, I always recommend starting with the smaller stuff because that stuff in my experience sells a little more often, and then you just kind of work your way up. Is that what you would do too?
Usually, I mean, and at this point, it's hard to remember exactly what I did. It's all kind of a whirlwind. I did have sheets of like, here's all the color combos I want for each item, and I kind of was able to check them off. You know, figuring out the colors that sell. I think it was kind of fun because I could obviously have a lot of neutrals, but then I could throw the pops of color in, and they sold just as well. You know, I mean, really. And someone did ask, where do you guys buy your mannequins? I know I got mine on Amazon. I only have one, and I would sit it up on, it was the kind where you could take it off of the rack too, so I could either have it sitting on the rack or I could take it off and the bottom was flat, and I could sit it up on top of a
I've seen ones you can hang on their canopy before too. I don't have one like that, but yeah, I got mine off Amazon too. It's pretty good price. And then I have the little mannequin heads too. I
had never gotten the heads. They always kind of freak me out.
I
wanted to find the glass ones.
Yeah,
the glass ones?
The styrofoam ones are a little freaky, and they go flying. It's the first thing to go when I'm at an outdoor market and the wind comes through. They go. So I have to duct tape them down.
Let's see. I was trying to make sure we didn't. And I have 2 more questions in the thing, but I'm trying to make sure. Cinder says, I use Evelyn's pattern for my hat. So that is actually, for anyone watching who's interested in my lineup, I actually, once I stopped doing shows, I created a pattern. It's a bundle, a pattern bundle, and it literally has all of those items. It's got the cat cozies, it's got the glove pattern I used, the headband pattern I used, the hat pattern I used, the scarf, and I think maybe the triangle wrap. I can't remember. It may only be 5, but it was my lineup. So if you want to copy my lineup, there you go. That's in my Etsy shop. It's just craft show pattern bundle. Yep.
That's cool.
Let's see. We'll have to get together on a giveaway. We'll have to give away some goodies for people. Let's see. If you decoupage the foam head, it may not look so creepy. So that's an option. Okay, let's see. Have people ever noticed the pricing changes as you continue in the circuits and mentioned it? So have you had anyone mention about, your price increases?
I don't think I have, but it's because it's been so slow, and I think people assume that it's going to go, especially when I first started to now where I'm at. People usually are pretty understanding, and I have people, I've been doing this show, I think this might be my 4th year doing this show, and my prices are going to go up again, and they go up every year, and I've never had anybody say anything, and usually they still buy something from me if it's somebody I remembered from the years before. Honestly, sometimes I don't even think they remember what they paid for it too. So,
exactly. And I think I've been the same way. I've mentioned it before, especially if it's I had someone who regularly ordered a custom order from me every year, and I would just have to tell them, hey, just so you know, the price has gone up. Most people are understanding. The price of all of their stuff has gone up. So I think, that they're used to it, and they know, especially if they know that you are creating a quality product. I have people who still now will show pictures of them wearing their hats from like 5 years ago, and I'm like, I'm so glad those are still good, still hanging in there,
awesome. I love seeing that. I've been at the grocery store before and seen my hat, and I used to have a different tag, so I know it's an older one, and I'm like, they're still wearing it. It's so fun to see.
Yeah. Let's see. We also had, would it be a waste of time to vend at a themed event that isn't my target audience?
Ooh. I don't think it would necessarily be a waste of time. I think it just depends. If it's a low fee, there's not a ton of risk, and you're open to trying something new, I think it could totally be worth your time. And maybe you don't have a ton of markets in that season and you just want to do something, you can try it out, hand out business cards and see how it goes. But it just depends. And
you can tailor your work a little. So I know I looked at doing, I never did it, but it was like this weird, like, goblin treasure show. Like, it was so strange, but it was very, like, mystic, and, there was going to be tarot readings, and it was just, like, supposed to be treasure. Like, you're going to find treasure. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, maybe I could, figure out a few items that I could throw in there that might be a little more on theme. Maybe I could change up my colors. If I know that it's going to be more of like an alternative goth kind kind of theme, I could just make a few more items that are in the black and charcoal and reds, and looking at those themes. Look at the other, a big one. If it's a themed event that's been happening for a long time, you can look back at past years and see who the vendors were, and then reach out to those vendors and say, you know, what were your best-selling items, if you don't mind me asking, you know, what was the you know, did it go well for you overall? But you can do a little snooping if you're not 100% sure. But I think if you're going to have fun with it, then go. Most of us shop at the shows anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And even asking the coordinator wants the event to run smoothly too. So you ask, hey, like, I'm thinking about selling this stuff. Do you think it would work well here? Or is there anything particular you think I could make for the show? People, the coordinators want it to be successful too. So
let's see. Have you ever been invited to participate in 2 events on the same weekend and you have never done either? How do you decide which one to do? I think that's a similar question. So I think it's, if you can do a little snooping and research and talk to some vendors who have been there before, maybe you have a better relationship with one of the coordinators. Maybe, you know, some of it's going to be the ease of the show in general, you know. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Yeah, you got to balance the pros and the cons, but
some
of it is it's a risk.
Pros and cons.
A little bit. Yeah, seriously. Or get a buddy to set up with your stuff at another one.
Yes. So we had a good question right before that I was going to let you answer, because it's dealing with difficult customers. Do you have any horror stories that you'd like to share?
I have horror stories. Oh man, I don't know which ones I want to share.
Okay.
I'll share this one because it's not a horrible horror story, but it was one that really resonated with me, like, or really affected me, and I still remember it. But it's just one of those. It was just like, it was weird. I've never had anybody just completely attack my stuff, but it was just an odd day. So I was set up. It was at the same show I do every year, the fall pumpkin patch show, and I sell these little pumpkins. They always sell really well. It's really fun. And this is back when my prices were very low. I think I was selling this pumpkin for $10. And I was like, whatever. It's $10. And her granddaughter really wanted it. So she came up and she ran up and she picked it up. She was so excited. And sometimes kids almost do the shopping and they hand you things, you know. And she came up to pay, and I was like, oh, it's going to be $10. And she made the comment, she did pay for it. She did buy it, which I thought was so bizarre, because she said, oh, it looks like I'm really having to support small business this year. And I'm thinking, lady, you're not even filling my gas tank. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, like, you're not supporting. I mean, I don't want your support. Like, don't buy this if you're going to be rude about it. And it was, I think she might have said something else. I just remember it was already a slow day, and it was already kind of like not a great day, and that really just was like, you're so rude. But I just ignore it. I mean, I'm not gonna go fight, and it's not worth it. I don't say anything back. She bought it from me. She walked away. My little customer who actually got the pumpkin was happy with it, so I'm glad she got it. And definitely.
Yeah, I've had the look. They look at the tag and they're like, you know what I mean, like, acting like it's so expensive. And there was one point where someone did, I think they literally straight up were like, that's kind of expensive. And I was like, you know, this is all handmade. You know, the price of yarn has gone up. I mean, I had all the talking points, and sometimes it doesn't feel worth it to even
just walk away. I think a lot of the times I tell people, you're going to hear some rude comments, but usually it's them just saying something to a friend that I don't even get involved with. They'll be like, oh, this is kind of expensive, or I can get this off Amazon. And I think it's funny. It's just people don't understand. I'm the one who made this. I'm sitting here. Just go talk about it somewhere else. Like, I don't want to hear about it.
How often do you get asked, did you make all of this?
Literally, like, every 2 seconds.
No, I've got little kids at my house that are making them right now. I run a sweatshop.
No, it's funny, and I'll be sitting there making it, too, and then they'll ask, do you hand make all this? And I go, yes.
Yep. I feel like that happened way more, because I'm like, I'm the only one here. Yeah. I'm making it right now. Yep.
But it's cool that they're wanting to know too, because it is a selling point. It shows why it's worth, you know, they pay more, it's worth more. It is handmade. So I kind of like when they ask, but I think it's so funny how often it happens.
So I have to ask you because I'm trying to remember. I never had too many horror stories, and I will ask you before we go to if you've got a good story that's not a customer, but maybe just a really bad show experience. So my horror story with a customer was when a lady came up, and I don't usually let people try my stuff on unless they really are like, I'm ready to buy this, and I'll say, well, try it on and make sure that it's comfortable. And this lady comes up and puts one of my hats on. She chooses the ivory white hat, tries this hat on, takes it off, walks away. I went to check the hat. There was makeup just caked to the inside of it. I had to just frog it all the way back, cut the yarn, remake the bottom half. And I think at that point I stopped selling the lighter white color.
The white gets dirt. It can get dirty, especially little kids. They'll got like,
I
was joking. Somebody had Cheeto fingers. Yeah, it's like somebody must have Cheeto fingers and touch this because it's literally turned orange. So can't sell that anymore.
Yep, that's tough. And I don't know, are there any precautions you take, because you do have a lot of like lighter colored items in your palette? What do you do to deal with, like, kids want to come up and grab things and touch them? Do you have to do anything to kind of try to prevent it, or you just roll with it?
I'm just so non-confrontational, especially with other people's kids. I don't want to say, oh, don't touch that, and a friend of mine, Katie, she does shows. She says she has hand sanitizer sitting there and a little sign. And so I'm like, that's a good idea to just have something there sitting there. But it kind of depends, because a lot of the times I'm at a market, the kids, I hate when there's like cotton candy or caramel apples, and they're like, have it in their sticky hands.
Yep, eating it like over the.
Yeah, they're like, but usually the parents are pretty good about watching them. And I haven't had really a ton of troubles. Maybe a couple items I've lost over the years, but sometimes it's just, I'll just wash it and gift it. Or, sometimes I can still save it, but I keep an eye on them still, so I know if I need to grab something from my inventory.
Yep. So show experience maybe that was not due to a customer, and I'll tell you mine quickly. And I don't, it's kind of fun because I don't share my craft show stories anymore because I don't do them anymore, so I don't talk about it. But I had a show that it was supposed to be a really great show, super excited. It was a pretty low show fee. You had a big booth, big booth space. I had both of my tables set up, and we knew that there was a chance of rain, but we didn't realize it was just going to be a downpour. And at this point, I had not invested in tent walls. I went to Home Depot and bought tarps and just tarped the sides, because they put us under kind of these pre-set up tents. And so I tarped the walls. Luckily, I had brought, towels, and I had towels taped up on the wall. I mean, it was like duct tape central. I mean, people were still like showing up and trying to come in and support. And I just remember it got so bad. I don't know if we shut down early or what happened, but I was packing everything up, and I got home and everything smelled musty. Like it was, because there was no, it doesn't mix, and luckily I was able to leave everything open and spread everything out. And I mean, everything seemed like it was fine. I didn't have to throw anything out, but that was just, when I opened that box and had that smell, I was like, this is all of it, So I don't know if you've had any like show experience, whether it was weather or if you forgot something, like what has that looked like for you?
Oh man, I feel like so many are coming to mind. The one that I think that's really, really coming to mind right now was weather, but it was wind. And wind, I feel like, is our worst enemy. Wind plus rain is even worse. But I remember setting up at it was a farmer's market that I was doing just, every other week or so. It was when I was still doing summer shows. And I remember setting up, I had so much weights, like seriously, I had those weights that just like slide onto the leg of the canopy. I had, I'm not kidding you, like a third of the way up the legs. Like they were so much weight holding my thing down. My dad literally went and like bought more weights for me as I was there. And I remember calling him back and saying, my tent is seriously going to blow away. It's going to blow away. And it was like other people's tents were blowing away. It was one of those shows where they said, we like set up rain or shine, you don't take down early. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is like intense. And so the funniest part was my dad, he had earlier that day, my parents are runners. They're crazy. They do all the runs. He ran like more than a marathon. I think it was a 30K or something that morning. And he just walks up and he's like, oh, I'll help you. he stood there and held down my canopy for literally 3 hours, just like, so it doesn't blow away. And it was so funny because like, I kept feeling bad. I was like, Todd, you don't have to stay here and hold it down.
Yeah.
And he kept going, I ran an
Yeah,
ultra marathon earlier. I'm fine standing here. But it was funny because he was holding it down and it was kind of up in the front, and you were just like waving people and saying hi, because it's like, what are you gonna do? You know, your tent's gonna blow away.
Yeah.
So I was surprised. Some people, I was having to ask, how in the world were you keeping your tent down? People had things that like almost like containers of water that they connected, and that was like really, really heavy. But yeah.
I remember it was really windy for one of my first shows after I bought a tent, and I had not bought weights because I just bought the tent, and luckily, talking about that supportive nature of the art world, the girl next to me had weights on hers, and they were able to wrap around mine too. So like it just shared, you know, shared the weight. But yeah, I mean, it's there's so many things. I feel like there's so many things that can happen, and you know, that was the one that came to mind too that I almost forgot about, was one of my I think it was my very first show in Atlanta. It's a little coffee shop, you know, so very low key. I don't even think I had a tablecloth. I don't think you needed one, you know, and I forgot sunscreen. I got lobster burned. I mean, there was literally an older lady and her husband who came up and started talking to me, and she was like, I live right down the road. Can I go get you some sunscreen? At that point, it was too late, but she did bring it. I did put it on to keep me from getting burned more, but you know, that's what I think you have a checklist too. So both of us have like checklists that we provide people, because that was like bug spray, you know, Tylenol. I had a migraine happen in the middle of one, and was going to every single vendor asking if they had Tylenol or some kind of painkiller.
Yeah, and if you can remember to bring all that stuff, you're going to be all the vendor's best friend if they need it. I've definitely had to, you know, someone comes up, my phone's dying, can I borrow your charger really quick? Have you ever had
have you had multiple squares where you've had to lend out square readers? You definitely have multiple square readers. I used to raid, now we don't have them here, but when we had Kroger grocery stores in Atlanta, and they had amazing clearance sections, you know, and so I would raid the clearance section for protein bars. So I would buy all the protein bars because they're so easy to store and keep, and you know, throw like 3 of them.
I definitely have to remember to bring little snacks, because I think a lot of the times people don't realize you can sneak away from your booths when it's slow sometimes and have a vendor watch, but usually during lunch when you're hungry is a lunch rush, and so the lines for food are long, and you're not going to be able to sneak away because you're making sales. So it's just important to keep in mind little snacks you can bring with you. That
you can eat right there. You're not having to leave and try to eat. And I know if anyone's like me, and I don't know if you're like this at all, but I didn't allow myself to treat myself until I made enough money to cover my booth fee. So I bought protein bars, and I was like, I'm going to be eating protein bars unless I make enough money to be like, okay, I'll go get a coffee, or okay, I'll go get, you know, and it was rare. Like I was a penny pincher, especially doing markets. Like I didn't, you know, I wanted to barter with people, but it was rare that I might get a coffee on the way. That was like my treat of like, it's going to be a long day. I'm going to go stop and get a coffee because I'm all about my drip coffee and not buying coffee out. But I would get myself a coffee that morning at the local coffee shop to be able to support them because it's show day. But I didn't usually buy because it's usually more expensive, you know, because you're at an event.
Well, it's a business. You're looking at it as a business expense. It does like take out of your sales for the day. So I always wait and do my shopping from other vendors at the end of the day. Or if I can do trades, that's awesome. But then I always say, ooh, this is really cute. Let me come back after a few sales.
You make a list. Make a list and prioritize and see how good you do, and check the cash envelope. Like that was always the best. I
counting it, like how much.
Oh man, well I'm so glad you came on. We'll have to do this again. We could totally do maybe a focus group if people have specific questions, because that's been really fun. And I'm not too far gone from the craft shows to not remember some of the stories.
I love hearing your stories. It's fun.
Yeah, so we'll definitely do this again because we are out of time. But I appreciate everyone who joined today. You know, definitely go support Camryn over on Instagram. And check out, so you have, and before we go, tell everybody about your challenge that you have.
Ooh,
Is that
yeah.
happening right now? When is that?
It's happening next Monday. So
Okay.
it's coming Monday, and it's a 5-day challenge. We're going to prep 2 hours every day. You got to sign up. It's free to sign up. So I just have that link in my bio if you want to go sign up really quick. And we're just going to prep for our markets. Busy fall season is coming up. So just kind of accountability buddies. You get checklists, you get lessons every day. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, yes. So go sign up for that. And if you joined in late and you want to rewatch this, it's going to be available here on Instagram. But if it's easier for you to watch on YouTube, especially if you're wanting to bookmark it to watch later, it will be available on YouTube within, I usually have it up in the next day or two. So no more than 3 days, you know. But I do have a full playlist of all the past Pink Sheep and Friends. I think it's crazy. I think this is episode 61. I mean, there's lots of episodes to watch. You can meet a lot of new people and make a lot of new friends, and see what people are doing, see what people are up to in this crazy crochet world, because it's a little crazy.
It kind of is.
So again, thanks
so much
everyone. Thanks to everyone who is watching the replay. And again, thank you, Camryn.
Thank you.
And we'll talk again soon, for sure. And we'll talk about a giveaway. We'll get in touch about it. That'll be really fun. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Happy housekeeping.